2, 1. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of the Dragons for 2023 with my special guest, the Mad Dragons guy supporter. If you'd like to introduce yourself, mate, to the show.
Yeah, g'day. My name's Donny Bell. I'm host the Mad Dragons vodcast. If you haven't come across us, we're on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and all over the place. So yeah, good to be here.
So everybody, his YouTube channel will be linked in the description below where to find his content as well. So we'll get started now. So what are your honest thoughts on our signings?
On the signings, I think it's been a pretty poor year in terms of recruitment. I think you look at the players that we've brought in, and we've got a couple of guys from the Tigers. We've got a guy that's in his mid-20s and has never played NRL before. So it's tough to sort of understand exactly what they're trying to achieve. Obviously, we're lacking a little bit in the forward pack, and most of what we signed are players in the forwards. But in terms of quality, I don't know whether the quality's quite up where it needs to be.
I'm just going to try to fix it, mate, because the connection on your end. Can you just try to say hello a couple of times? I'm just trying to fix it up because it cut out. So if you want to just say something now, see if it's going to work properly.
Yeah. Have you got me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better now. It cut out on my end, so if we can just repeat what I said, because I think it cut out. Try to fix this. It keeps cutting out on my end, so I don't know if you can.
Okay, it's bouncing around a little bit.
Sorry for this, mate. There's some technical difficulties with this stupid thing.
No, that's all right. It's part of the fun of doing live streaming, mate. Is from time to time it does play up on you.
All right. So we'll just repeat. So I just asked if anybody didn't hear what his thoughts are on our new signings. So hopefully we can hear you now and we can understand what you were saying.
Yeah, so I suppose in terms of the signings, we haven't signed a lot. We've got a couple of guys from the West Tigers who won the Wooden Spoon last year. Jacob Little struggled to get a game with the Tigers, and Zane Musgrove, who was sort of in and out of the side as well. He was he started most games, but had a few games off the bench as well. So a guy that can't nail down a starting spot with the Tigers, again, he doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, I think, going forward. Ben Murdoch-Masila, again, from a bottom 8 team that struggled to get a run. Always a player that carries a bit of extra weight too. I'm not sure whether the new rules, the 6 again rules, really suit the way Ben Murdoch-Masila plays. So that's one that's a big question mark. And then we've got Nick Louis-Toso, who's 26, 27, never played NRL, been in a few NRL systems, but never been able to quite cut it. Hopefully he's a late bloomer. He had a great year in the Queensland Cup last year. But again, I think there's big question marks on every one of our signings. And given that we didn't go all that well last year, it's hard to say that our signings are the ones that are going to see us improve next year or this year.
I saw him last year. I think in replacing Burgess, we've done probably Musgrove. I see him kind of doing the George Burgess effect, where he can come in occasionally, and mostly play New South Wales Cup. I don't really see him starting. I don't know what your thoughts are, if you'd start him or put him on the bench, but.
Well, I think Musgrove, he started, 17, 18 games last year for the Tigers, so he's generally been a starter for them. So I think he would be coming to the Dragons hoping to be a starter. But I agree with you. I think he's going to be most effective for us as coming off the bench. And again, it's going to be interesting to see what we do with the front row in general. That front row rotation. I think we've got a lot of front rowers, but how we slot them all in, and you talk to a lot of different people, and everybody's got a different idea in terms of who's going to be in our front row.
And we've got a lot. We've got, is it like 5, maybe 6? Hard to remember. We got Jaden Hunt, Blake Laurie, Francis Molo, Michael Molo, Josh Kerr, Jack DeBellin can play there, and Nick Louis Tosso. So we've got, and Zane Musgrove and Murdoch Masilla. So we've got a lot of options.
Aaron Woods as well. I know a lot of Dragons fans would like to forget Aaron Woods, but he is still there.
Yeah, he's a nice guy, but I don't see him being that much for the club this year when we've got so many younger people, but we'll see what happens. But I'd probably go with Francis Molo and Blake Laurie to start. Probably that's probably the best option that I see if I look at the team.
Yeah, I've got Jack DeBellin starting in the front row, and that's more to do with the fact that for me, Jack Bird at lock is a non-negotiable. If we want to be competitive, what Jack Bird sort of revolutionised the Dragons at the back end of last year when he went to lock. He gave us a different dimension. We just look so much better in attack when Jack Bird rather went to lock. He takes a bit of pressure off the halves. He takes a bit of pressure off the fullback. He can bob up in different parts of the field, and I really like what he gives us when he's at the base of the scrum. I think Jack DeBellin, when he plays lock, tries to play as a ball player. It's slow motion. It's predictable. It's telegraphed, and I like Jack DeBellin when he simplifies his game, plays as a front rower, get the ball, run forward, make as many metres as he can. Find your front, tackle hard, all that sort of stuff. When it's simple for Jack DeBellin, I think he's really good for us. So I've got DeBellin and Laurie as my front rowers.
I could see that, and I like that as well because we've got quite a lot of options there. But I just hope for Jack Bird for this year and the next few years that we lock him in one position instead of shoving him everywhere. Because we've now got Moses Mbai that can kind of do that, and we don't need a second type of utility guy, I don't think. Because what he played, what was it last year, like 5 or 6 different places at different points. So I'm hopeful he gets consistent football at one position. And hopefully he doesn't get injured. And if he doesn't get injured, if we get a full 27 rounds now? Is that right?
Yeah, 27 rounds. Yeah, three buys, so it's still 24 games, but 27 rounds, so it stretches out a little bit longer.
What are your thoughts on that with the Dolphins and all coming in?
I'm not a fan of a buy. I'm certainly not a fan of having a buy in round 1. I don't think that is at all helpful. So that's I think the Dragons got screwed a little bit there, but otherwise you look at the draw and we seem to have done pretty well, particularly early on. But I'm not a fan of the buy. I think if you're going to bring a team in, you need to bring 2 teams in. I don't know how long we can keep going with 17 teams. I think we've got to bring in team number 18 at some point in the not too distant future.
And I just don't know why we had to get the bye round 1. I talked to certain different people, and they were suggesting that the Dragons play for round 1 instead, have the team play in the New South Wales Cup, give the NRL boys all a run in the New South Wales Cup instead of having the bye and have it as a televised game instead, just to give us game time for the first round. I know. What do you think about that?
Well, it's not a bad suggestion, but the Dragons in New South Wales Cup have got the bye as well. So it's,
Yeah,
yes, I don't know what's happened there. Whether there's an odd number of teams in the New South Wales Cup now too. I think one of the teams has dropped out, so there's a bye in that competition every week. So, but I don't know, mate. You certainly don't want the bye in round one. The benefit of the
no,
bye is that it gives you a chance to refresh some players. So our second and third byes, they will be helpful. They'll come at a good time of the season where a few blokes will have bumps and bruises, and they'll give them an extra week to get over that. But a bye in, I think any team that's got a bye in the first sort of month of the competition, that's not when you want it. You don't need it at that stage of the year.
kind of halfway through, maybe round 18 to 25 is probably more suitable.
Absolutely.
The other question I've got for you is: do you see Moses Sully playing consistent football next year for us?
I do. I think he was a real surprise packet for me last year. He was one I was certainly unsure of coming into the season. I was one of the critics that said if he wasn't good enough to get past Morgan Harper and Brad Parker at Manly, then how good can he really be going? I always knew he was a really good attacking player, but had big question marks over his defence. But I've got to say, I barely noticed any real
problem at all.
Yeah, I thought he was very solid defensively for us and did a really good job. I thought he was consistent last season whenever he was on the park. I actually think with another off season with the team that our halves are going to have a lot more of an idea as to how to best utilise Moses Sully. I think he can be even more damaging in 2023 than he was last year, which has got to be terrifying for opposition teams.
Yep. And I I was unsure of him signing, not just because he hadn't played in a while, but his off-field incidents that have happened over the years. And I worried that he might get himself into trouble, but he stayed out of trouble and probably one of our best players by far. And it's good we signed him on a long-time deal instead of just a 1-year deal. I'm happy about that now.
Yeah, well, I can tell you the Maddragonsvod vodcast did a Player of the Year where we gave there was 6 of us on the panel that gave 3, 2, and 1 every single game last year, and Moses Sully finished second in our voting, despite the fact he missed the last half a dozen rounds. So we had him as the Dragons' second best player, obviously behind Captain Ben Hunt. So yeah, we on the Mad Dragons vodcast certainly felt that he had a sensational season, and as I said, I think he can be even better heading into this year. I think he can be better this year than he was last year.
And G was good in the World Cup.
Absolutely, yeah. No, he. I mean, he's a damaging ball runner, and the more you can get the ball in his hands, the more damage he's going to do. I find it interesting. One of the biggest criticisms of Moses Sully is that he doesn't pass very often. I don't think he needs to pass very often. I challenge you to tell me which centre passes the ball to his winger. There's no centres in the modern game that pass to their winger. The only time the winger gets the ball is when the fullback cuts out the centre. So there's not too often when that was happening at the Dragons. It goes to Sully. He's the one that's going to damage and score a try. And if he does get a half break, he can pop an offload. I think he was pretty close to the top centre for try assists about halfway through the year as well. So, it's not something that he's behind the rest of the centres in the competition in doing. So I think it's an invalid criticism.
And I would also say with this year, coming into this year with Moses, is as long as he stays injury free, I think he could honestly be our best signing for the club in many, many years.
Yeah, no, he's a wonderful talent, and I think it was actually I think it was a bit of a travesty he wasn't mentioned for State of Origin selection too much last year. I think if he plays as well as he did last year, this year, his name has got to come up as a potential New South Wales Blue.
Yeah, definitely. And what were your thoughts on our signings that we made last year? Like, how do you think they turned out?
Well,
We've already
again,
we've
I think
already
there was
talked about Malcolm.
yeah, there were certainly some flops. You talk about Aaron Woods, George Burgess, that they were signings that blokes that came in with a lot of experience, but probably didn't work out as well as some people expected. Francis Molo, who you've got starting in the front row, I think he started the year well, kind of tapered off a little bit, so that one's kind of 50-50. But you think of who were the Dragons' best players last year, and you've got Ben Hunt head and shoulders above everyone else. And then you've got Moses Sully was probably second best, and third best was probably Jaden Sewer. So two of their best players last year were two of our new signings. So I think last year's signings actually turned out to be really good.
Except the only ones I still never understood why we signed them was George Burgess, Jack Wojcicki, because I just didn't think we had no point in signing them.
Yeah, you said that George Burgess has been replaced by Zane Musgrove. I kind of feel George Burgess has kind of more been replaced by Ben Murdoch-Masila. I think the Dragons for a long time now have been looking for this huge front rower that's going to come off the bench and have an impact, like can come on and turn the momentum of a game. I think that's originally why they brought Josh Kerr, and that didn't work out. Then we brought down this young fella from Queensland, Eddie Blacker, and that didn't work out. Then we brought in George Burgess, said, oh, he's the old bull. He can show people how it's done. And that didn't work out because he never really recovered from that hip resurfacing surgery. And now we've brought in Ben Murdoch-Masila to, again, try and play that big, huge human just coming off the bench, playing 20 minutes and have an impact, change the momentum of the game. So that's kind of the purpose I saw for George Burgess. I 100% agree with you with regards to Jack Gachewski. I never understood why we signed him. But at the same time, you look at our back row ranks now in terms of who's going to play in the second row, and a guy like Jack Gachewski might actually add a little bit of depth there. So I think we're really lacking in that second row edge forward department heading into this season.
And I just when he signed Jack Wojcicki, like I didn't really know who he was, and it wasn't a big name, and he didn't leave the club being a big name. I think was it 3 or 4 games, and he didn't do anything that really stood out, in my opinion. And he's gone to the Cowboys now, where I can't see him getting any much game time there as well. It was just a weird signing.
Yeah, I thought it was strange. I thought we had enough in that position heading into the year. He got an opportunity at the start of the year only because Billy Burns got injured, and I think that really did impact Billy Burns' season. He sort of never really got the chance to have a pre-season, and then sort of when he did come into the team, he wasn't playing that well. But yeah, I think Jack Gachewski was a strange signing that I never really understood or agreed with. I thought there was a few other positions we needed to bulk up at the time. But yeah, in saying that, he was a second rower and we've let him go. And it seems like we've let all our second row depth players go. What are your thoughts in terms of our second row depth heading into this year? We've got Jaden Sewer, and that's about it.
I mean, I think it's stupid we let Tarek go. I'm never going to understand why we let Tarek go. Because, I mean, the good thing with Tarek is even if he only played 1 more year, another year with Tarek working with someone like Billy Burns, so I think having Tarek there really could help the development of people like Billy Burns and Philly Mayono and those guys. I don't know why we let him go, but I don't think we're as good. And I think now if Gachewski signed now, I think I'd understand it more now than I did in 2022.
Yeah, I agree.
I really like Billy Burns though, and if he can get a full pre-season, no injuries, and play consistent NRL, he's a really good player. But it's just unfortunate with him that injuries have really bugged him for many
I'll
years.
tell you what, Nick, you and me might be cut from the same cloth because I'm one of the few people that also really likes Billy Burns. I think that he's young. He's still only 22, 23 years of age. I think there's a lot of upside. He's a rangy back rower. He's sort of that old school build of what you expect a second rower to be. He runs really good lines. He sort of sees space and hits a hole nicely. So if he's got quality ball players inside him, I think he's got some ability there. He's got some late footwork. He can pop an offload. The only question mark I've got over Billy Burns is his defence. I think at times he can be a little soft defensively, but if he can fix that, that's stuff you can fix in the gym. You can fix it on the training paddock, and a good, as you say, a good pre-season under his belt. And I expect him to come out and be a lot more solid defensively than he has been. That's the biggest weakness I see with him. But otherwise, I think he's a really promising prospect.
And the one player, I like this guy as a guy, but not as a player. And I know what your thoughts are, but Philly Mayono, I'm not a huge fan of him. He's a nice guy, such a nice guy, always happy to talk to, but I don't think he's not much of a great player. Don't know what your thoughts are on him, but
yeah, I've never met him and don't know him as a guy, but everyone I've spoken to that has met him says that he's just a champion bloke, and everyone that's met him wishes the best for him and wants him to succeed, wants him to be the player that he looked like he was going to be early in his career. I again tend to agree with you that I don't know that his work rate was high enough in the New South Wales Cup to deserve getting a recall to the NRL. I'm not sure exactly what his role is. One of the interesting things about Terrell Fuamoano last year was that everyone thinks that Terrell Fuamoano is a second rower, but not in the NRL, not in New South Wales Cup, at no level last year did he play second row. He played lock, he played prop, and he played centre. He didn't play second row once all season last year. So I'm not sure what role does he play in our side. If he's not a second rower, I can't see him getting a spot as a middle forward with the depth we've got in those positions. So he's got to be a second rower this year, which goes against the direction that we've been going with him. I don't know.
And with the second row, like I'd rather put Ben Murdoch-Masila in the second row than Philly Mayono. It's not ideal, but I'd rather put Murdoch-Masila up there that at least he's played second row and played it more recently than Philly Mayono. The last time I saw him playing second row was for the Koori knockouts about 3 or 4 years ago. So it's been a long time.
Yeah, and you talk to people, and most people still think of Fuamoano as a second rower, but over the last couple of years, he's played more lock. He's played more through the middle of the field, and I think that's because of his defensive issues. I think when he gets out to the edge, he tends to struggle a little bit because he's so built, he's so strong. He tends to struggle with sideways movement. So when he gets in the defensive line and he's messing with footwork, he hangs out an arm, and all of a sudden he's got an 8-week suspension on his hands. So I think that's one of his big issues when he's defending a little bit wider. I think it's a lot simpler for him if he's defending tighter.
And I personally don't have him in my side. Even in round one, when we've got the injuries or the suspensions, I have him in the New South Wales Cup team. Unfortunately, I don't think he'll ever be a mainstay in the Dragons system or personally any other NRL system.
No, I'm not. I think you're right, mate. I don't think there'll be too many people that would disagree with that. Although I know a lot of people do have him in their 17 coming into this year. It'll be interesting to see which way Hook goes. I'm sure he'll get his opportunities in the trial games, which really aren't that far away. So not too far away before we play St Helens, and then of course the charity shield.
I'll be at the St Helens game, first game of the year, so I'm looking forward to that. It should be good.
Yeah, obviously I live over in Western Australia, so I won't get over to too many games, but I'll be heading over to New South Wales to see 2 games next year. I'm going to be there for the game at Cogra against the Sharks in round 4, and also down in Wollongong for the game against the Dolphins in round 5. So they're the two Dragons games that I'll be over in Sydney to see.
We'll have to catch up, mate, because I'll be at the Dolphins game. We'll have to. I go to all the games at Wing Stadium and all the New South Wales Cup games at Wing. I go to more New South Wales Cup games than I do NRL games. So, if you're there,
I'll definitely be there.
We also play Parramatta.
What
were you saying, mate?
I said I'm also looking to head to Collegians on the 25th of March, round 8 of the junior rep season, to watch the Steelers up against the Raiders as well. So hoping to see a bit of footy in the week that I'm over there.
I've got 8 friends of mine that play all for the Steelers, so hopefully they get a run this year. So the other person I want to ask you about is what your thoughts are on Moga.
Tautau Moga, I think it was interesting that we extended his contract. I thought I know that he was required last year and he came in and he did a decent job, but I think after 4 knee reconstructions, he's probably a little bit too slow to be playing NRL regularly on the wing. The fact that we've given him another season, I think that's questionable. I think we've got young blokes like Alex Lobb coming through that I would much prefer to see him get an opportunity in the NRL ahead of a guy like Tautau Moga. I don't know. I don't know what value a guy of his age is as a depth player. I'd prefer to see some of our young talent get a chance.
But I will. I'm a fan of Tautau Moga. I actually did 2 sessions with his high performance coach yesterday and Wednesday, and they're really working on him. I was at the Dragons clinic, and I think the value he brings is for the young guys. How much he helps the young guys. When I saw him training, and he's decent. He did the job. He's very basic, but if he's going to come into the side, I would rather him play centre where he doesn't have to be running as much, because I saw him at the Tigers game when he ran straight down and just went. Fuck, it was funny. Do you know the try? You know when he tried to get the try against the Tigers?
Yeah.
I was upstairs watching it. I didn't understand why he didn't continue going straight or pass the ball. He should have. But I think he's okay. And I think when he comes in for injury and suspension or comes on as the 18th man, he can do a job. He can do the basic job.
I think if it wasn't for his 4 knee reconstructions, Tautau Moga may very well be spoken about as one of the all-time great centres that the competition has ever seen. I think he was a wonderful, wonderul talent as a young player. He played Australian schoolboys twice. He got picked to play a 3rd time. He was, I think, the first player ever to be picked to play Australian schoolboys 3 times. Unfortunately, he didn't get to play the 3rd time because that was when he did his knee the first time. But he was just a prodigious talent from a very, very young age. Still, I think he's one of the best interceptors in the competition. I saw him take, I reckon, 5 intercepts last year across New South Wales Cup and also NRL, but didn't have the pace that he used to have to capitalise on taking those intercepts. So the speed has deserted him, unfortunately. But he's a big, strong lad, and like you said, he plays a role. I would just prefer it if he didn't get to play too much NRL this year.
Yeah, was someone that I would have preferred over Moga, but it was just injury. Was Max Fiona, not Matthew, Max. I thought he would have been better than Moga. Just unfortunately that he has got more injuries. Unfortunately, so but he does a job when he comes in. But I'd rather when he comes in, if we maybe put him in at centre. I'd rather him at centre where he can just do a basic job and bring a Max Fiona type of guy into the side, or possibly someone like Jaden Sutherland who could just play on the wing that's got the fast pace.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think there's a few options there, but on Max Fino, I think that it's a bit of a make or break year for him. He's had a horrid run with injuries. He was out for about 10 weeks with a concussion a couple of years back, and struggled to get on the park again last year. Every time he looks like he's starting to put a couple of games together, he seems to pick up another injury, and he really hasn't come on. You look at what Matthew did at the back end of last year. He really went from strength to strength and looks a genuine NRL talent. I think he could be one of the premier wingers in the competition by the end of this year, the way that he's going. But Max, he's got a big job to do this year to prove that he's got what it takes to be an NRL player. So I think it's a huge year for him.
And it's unfortunate, but he can be those two together. If Max and Matt are fully fit together, they can be a really good combination, either at one at centre, one at wing, or both on the wing. They can be both really good. But hopefully we get to see him this year more than New South Wales Cup. But
yeah, I think I think Mika Ravalawa could be the player that's under a bit of pressure.
Yeah, well, we got to keep McCarty there. He's too good to get rid of him.
Yeah, he's a great player, but if there's someone below him that's playing better, I think Matthew's going to. I think McCarty will start the year as the number one winger for the Dragons, but I think Matt will go around him pretty quick. The way that his trajectory is rising. So McCarty, I thought, had an average year last year. He had a couple of injuries, and obviously injured towards the back end of the year with that hamstring as well. Struggled to get across the line as often as he has in the past as well. So he's another player that's got a fair bit to prove, and maybe under a little bit of pressure with some of those young blokes like Max Fino, like Alex Lobb, coming up through the junior ranks.
And I actually go to school with Alex's sister, so I know him fairly well. So he's a really good kid, and I'm hopeful that he can prove himself in the trials coming up. He should be someone that we should at least keep our eye on for a while. He's on a trial and train contract, so hopefully he might get that last development contract or a top 30 contract, but he's definitely someone to keep your eye out for. The other one I'd like to talk to you about is Josh Corrick.
Yep. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Josh Corrick. I think he's got to play NRL at some stage this year. He's on a development contract at the moment, so that means it'll probably be after round 11 when he does get blooded. But I just think he's the kind of player that if Dragons fans haven't seen him before, he's not a player that your casual fans going to notice. He's not a guy that's going to break through the line and run 100 metres and score a try. He's not a guy that's going to set the highlights reel on fire. But he is a guy that will always do his job. Every single time he goes out there, he barely misses a tackle. He does his work with the ball, takes his carries. He just doesn't do anything wrong. He does all those little 1%ers that make a quality rugby league player. Doesn't necessarily get noticed by the casual fans, but I tell you that the coaches and
he's such a great player.
Yeah, he's so good to watch.
And they were saying that he was going to get a run this year. Griffin even said that he was very close to getting a run if it wasn't for him getting injured, unfortunately, at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a common tale, I think, for Josh, is that he has picked up a couple of injuries at inopportune times that's prevented him from making his NRL debut so far. But I think 2023 is the year that we're definitely going to see him in the NRL side at some stage. And I guarantee fans out there, if you're watching, Josh Corrich is a player that will not let you down. He will do the job that he's asked to do.
So we've only got 8 minutes left, mate. So hopefully that's all good with you.
Yeah, all good, mate.
So the other player I'd like to get your opinion on, someone who I'm not that highly rated about, is Lomax. I just think personally he's not achieved the best that he could be doing yet. I think there's a lot of potential in him, but I think he needs to work a lot harder at getting that potential, and I think he kind of lacks off a bit and does the flick pass way too much and can cost us a game.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, Zach Lomax is my favourite player. I think that he has got the potential. I agree with your criticisms that he certainly hasn't quite lived up to his full potential. But I think his potential is that he could be the best centre in the entire world. I don't think that there's a centre with the same skill set as Zach Lomax. He is arguably our most creative player. He's the guy that creates opportunities. And one of the things I liked about last year was that he started getting more involved. He actually increased his work rate and did a lot of hard work that kind of went unnoticed. So in terms of run meters, last year he had more average run meters than he has had at any other stage in his career. So he's doing more work than he's ever done. The patience thing is the key. And Zach has said this himself, that patience is the big thing that he's trying to work on in trying to work out when to use that flick pass, when to throw that miracle around the corner pass, and when not to. And that comes with experience. I think a lot of people forget that he's still only 22, 23 years of age. Like, it feels like he's a lot older because he's been around for quite a few years, but he's still only a kid. So
I am a big fan of him, but I'd just like to see the potential more than what I have personally.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair enough, and I think he would like that too.
The other thing I'd like to talk about is, who do you want to see playing fullback?
Fullback's got to be Tyrell Sloan. I mean, obviously Cody Ramsey. Everything I've heard about Cody is that he's very long odds to be playing at all in 2023, let alone starting the season. But I think the time for playing safety first and going with a guy like Moses Mbai or Jack Bird at fullback, I think that has passed. We have to take the risk on Tyrell Sloan. I don't think that he's necessarily 100% ready to play NRL fullback on a consistent basis. But if we want to be successful, then we have to give him that opportunity. And he's a guy that will win you games. He'll make mistakes along the way, but he's a guy that's got the ability to win you games on his own back when he gets it right. He is a prodigious talent that he's got all the skills that are required of a top grade fullback.
He definitely does. But for me, I really hope Ramsey does play. But you got to start Sloan. But if Sloan doesn't work out, I think we need to look for a solid fullback. And personally, I don't see that being Mbai. At Mbai's age, he did a decent job when he came in, but he wasn't any wow factor or didn't. I don't know what your thoughts are, but he wasn't amazing. He did a decent job, but Sloan's definitely got to be there.
As I said, mate, Moses Mbai at fullback, he's not going to excite anyone. He's not a guy that's going to win you games. He's not a guy he's a warm body that will fill that spot, make not too many errors. He'll do most things right, but in terms of ball playing and actually creating opportunities, I don't see him being the right man for the job. And Jack Bird's too slow. So, I mean, who else do we look to? There's not too many other options.
We'd have to look to buying someone, but I think Sloan's definitely the option to go with. And if I was the Dragons, I'd be looking at sending Sloan to one of those guys in America. If I was the Dragons, I'd be looking at investing the money to send him over to America to work with, what's the guy's name? The one who deals with the injuries and the players. Latrell went to him. And I personally think
about. Tommy Turbo's just headed over there as well. And
I'd be looking at investing our money to send him over there and see what we can get out of him. I know that won't happen, but that's what I'd do. But the only other person to look out for is young Trey Stewart, who's there and about that can do that job in the New South Wales Cup. But you got to go with Sloan.
Yeah, Trey Stewart, another one on the train and trial contract. So, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, we've still got a couple of spots to fill, and most people seem to think that it's going to come from that train and trial contract. And I think a lot of people were looking at guys like Haley Finau, the Couchman boys, Aaron Johnson, guys like this to come in, maybe even a Jacob Webster, someone like that. But I think with what's going on with Junior Amone and what's going on with Cody Ramsey, we're very, very thin now in terms of fullbacks and halves. If something happens to one of them, we don't have a lot of options. So maybe that brings a guy like Zach Herring and, as you say, Trey Stewart into the fold in terms of an option to get a top 30 contract.
And one person I would love to see get a top contract is Jacob Webster. I don't know if you probably don't know. I don't think anybody probably really knows who he is, but I'm really good mates with him because I know pretty much all the players and I have contact with quite a lot of the players. I'm actually going to do some training with Jacob Webster in a couple of weeks' time to help work on some of my skills. But if he gets a chance, he's someone that hopefully will get a chance in the top 30. But with the whole thing with Amone, I'm probably not allowed to comment on that due to my connection with Amone and that. I've decided to not comment on that, mate, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, Jacob Webster obviously played New South Wales last year, and he's a fantastic talent. And it was a shame, I think, during the Jersey Flegg season that he was injured towards the back end of the year and missed some of those important games. He could have made a real difference in that game against Penrith, although Aaron Johnson was the guy that came in and replaced him, and I thought Aaron Johnson did a really good job as well. And he's got himself a train and trial contract with the way that he performed at the back end of last year as well. So, there's a lot of good young forwards finally starting to come through. The Dragons for years have been really good at producing outside backs, but it's nice now to see a couple of forwards starting to make their mark.
And what are your honest opinion with Jaden Sutherland? Where would you like to see him play?
Well, again, I know you don't want to talk about the Junior Omono thing, but I think it's almost guaranteed that he will be subject to the NRL's no fault stand down policy, and that for me, Jaden Sullivan at 6, I think that's a straight swap. He goes into the 6 jersey alongside Ben Hunt. I think the biggest question is what side of the field does Jaden Sullivan play on? Because traditionally, Bud plays on the left-hand side, the same as Ben Hunt. Which one of those two is going to switch sides? Do you want to have a young bloke coming in playing his normal role on the left-hand side? And then, I personally, I would like to leave Jaden Sullivan on the left and maybe move Ben Hunt across to the other side of the ruck and the right-hand side. But I guess the coaching staff will work that one out.
We'll have to work that one out. Sorry, I can't get into detail with that, mate.
No, we don't have to talk about that. But just talking about footy, mate.
Yeah, but I think Sutherland would be the option there. That's all I will say. The other one I'd like to ask you about is with Mbai is concerned, would you look to re-sign Mbai, or would you look to go and get one of our younger guys from the Cup come up and do his role for next year at the end of 2023?
Yeah, I'd certainly be looking to either the market and see what other players are available that may be a little bit younger than Moses Mbai. I wouldn't necessarily be looking to re-sign him. He is a bit younger than most people seem to think. I think he's 28, 29, something like that. So he's certainly got a few more years left in him. I think his versatility can be useful. I've got a mate that always says Moses Mbai will make a great coach one day. If we can keep him around long enough to maybe slot into our assistant coaching staff when he retires, then that might be worthwhile. Maybe giving him another contract, but I've got to say he's not one of my favourite players. He doesn't excite me whenever he's on the team list, but he certainly adds some sort of value with his versatility.
And I agree. I'm not a huge fan of him, but at least he does. When he did come in last year, he does do the job. Same as Aaron Woods. They do the job. They're nothing special, but they do the job for the money they're paid for. They just do. They can slot in, basically do what they need to do, but they're not going to be on the highlight videos. They're just a simple.
I agree with you on Aaron Woods, mate. I think that he's not paid big dollars. I think a lot of people expect Aaron Woods to still be the player he was, 5-10 years ago. That's not what he's been brought to do. He's been brought to come in and play a role, and I think he does that. I think he's good for his off-field. He's good for our young fellas. You listen to any of the young fellas talk, and they all rave about how Aaron Woods helps them out. So I think off the field, he's playing a really important role for us. Hopefully he doesn't play as big a role for us on the field this year, because we've got a few young blokes that can come up and step up and take his spot. But I think he's been worthwhile for his signing, more worthwhile than I think a lot of Dragons fans give him credit for.
Yeah, he has. I do have some word with Woodsy that the Dragons are looking at re-signing him for 2024, not as a player, as a mentor coach for 2024 and onwards.
Oh, that would be fantastic if we could keep him around the club, because, like I said, every young player that I've spoken to or I've heard speak, they all say the same thing. They all rave about how Woodsy helps them out, and his experience is really valuable for him at the moment, and would continue to be valuable if he's around the club again next year, not in a playing capacity.
Even the older players, because I know pretty much the whole team, and everybody raves about him. But yeah, we're reporting that we're going to give him a 4-year mentor coaching role, and maybe that might lead into an assistant role down the track. But I don't mind it. But I don't know where Woodsy plays this year, though. I don't know who I'd drop to put Woodsy in the side. I've got him in round 1 because of Francis Molo and Mbai out, but I don't have him permanently in the side.
Yeah. No, I've definitely got him in New South Wales Cup most of the year. I think that there's quite a few guys that are ahead of him. I think even for a 1 week thing, a guy like Jaden Hunt or Michael Molo would be better off coming in for that 1 week experience rather than Aaron Woods. But we'll see which way Hook decides to go there.
And I'm a huge fan of Jaden Hunt. I know not a whole lot of people know much about him or seen much of him playing, but I'm very high on him. So I've got him on my bench for the whole year. I'm a huge fan of him. So hopefully I have him over Woodsy because I think if I look at it for depth, you're probably looking at Josh Kerr, Michael Molo, Jaden Hunt before Woodsy personally.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree with that completely. Even a guy like Nick Luitoso, if he's doing the job in New South Wales Cup, I'd be giving him a crack before Aaron Woods. But it all comes down to form and what they're doing on the park and what they're doing at training. The fans, like, we can have as strong as an opinion as we like, but we don't get to see what they do every day on the training park, and the coach does, and he's the one that sees them every day and gets to make those decisions. But if we did get to see that, maybe we'd be able to make a more informed decision.
And the other thing is, I think it's unfortunate with Josh Kerr, personally, because he's got the talent there, but it's just he's never been able to fully show it at the Dragons. I personally wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't ask for a request to leave early at some point this year. Because I really like Josh Kerr and I know him, and you can tell he's not happy about playing New South Wales Cup or being used as the 18th man. And I personally probably wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't leave before the end of his contract.
Yeah, he's probably one of the more frustrating players, I think, in our squad, Josh Kerr. I look at the skill set that he's got, and I think he is the perfect modern day front rower. Like, he has footwork, he has agility, he's got a lightning fast play the ball. He's a huge body. He can really bend the line when he sets his mind to it. I think he's just the perfect modern day player in this era of six agains and all that sort of stuff. He should be the bloke that is leading our pack, but he's never really been able to produce that on a consistent basis when given an opportunity at NRL level. He makes too many errors. He gives away penalties. He gets a little bit lazy defensively, and he lets himself down. This is like you say, he's coming off contract. He's playing for his career. I'm hopeful that he can have a huge season because I see a lot of potential in Josh Kerr.
I love him at the club. I see the world of potential, and I love him at the club. He's well liked at the club. All the players like him. It's just you really hope he gets the pre-season trials and he gets the weight loss, because that was one of the things that they were saying about him with the weight loss, that he needed to lose a certain amount of weight. And I'm hopeful he's done that, and I hope that in the trial games,
don't we all?
We start. But I'm hopeful that we could start him in the trial games against St Helens at least, and give him the whole crack for the game and see how he really goes. But yeah, I probably wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't leave earlier.
Yeah. I hope you're wrong about that, but
I would
love to see him. Yeah, I would love to see him do really well, because, like I said, I think he has all the skills to be a fantastic player. He just hasn't been able to put it together yet. If it clicks, hopefully it clicks very, very soon, sometime during 2023, and can earn another contract with the Dragons and be with us for basically his whole career.
I'd like to see that, but I just can't, unfortunately, see it happening at this current stage for him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm hopeful, but I'm not confident either.
Because he had offers from the Warriors. The Warriors offered him a deal, but the Dragons wouldn't let him go. So he was offered a 4-year deal at the Warriors and had to knocked it back because we wouldn't let him go. So there's other clubs that would like him. They took Jackson Forward from us,
Yep.
who I always liked at the club, and I see him kind of the same as a Josh Kerr that has got the potential but never fully put it together.
I thought Jackson Ford had a wonderful year in lower grades last year and finally earned an opportunity up in the top grade and did really well in the last couple of rounds of last season. My sources tell me that he was offered a contract at the Dragons, but what the Warriors offered him was about 4 times more than what the Dragons offered him. So it was a pretty easy decision for him in the end.
Yeah, he's a great guy as well. So I hope he gets his chance with the Warriors, but I still see him probably in their New South Wales Cup side as well. But we've only got not a lot of time, so we'll just get back to the last 3 questions, and then we'll be finished. I didn't realise we've gone longer than I thought, but I hope you haven't minded.
Always happens, mate.
So, what's your honest thoughts for us this year?
I'm actually a lot more positive than most people. Most people have got us missing the 8 and struggling. I think that we've got a really good opportunity, particularly early in the season, to set the tone for the way things are going to go. We've got the Titans a couple of times. We've got the Dolphins, the Broncos who are struggling. So I think that we're looking okay during that first 10 rounds. I think we could be on 14 competition points. So it's basically 7 out of our first 10.
I'm very high. I personally have us from 9 to 7.
Yeah, I've got us finishing between 4th and 7th.
So yeah, kind of I agree about that. I'd probably go 7, 8, kind of. But what we need to do is play consistently for the 80 minutes. And that's what I want to see from us. Even if we lose the games, I'd like to see us play consistently for the full 80 minutes, because that's one area I think that we lack in, is the consistency for the full 80.
Yeah, but mate, like most teams, we're going to need a lot of luck with injuries and suspensions and all that sort of stuff. I think if we lose a couple of players in key positions, then we're pretty much screwed. But I think our best team can compete with most of the teams in the competition.
And I think at least this year we've got some decent depth. You'd probably say we've got some decent depth, but we could probably look at getting another centre, possibly, and another fullback, and possibly another second rower. If we're in the market, I think those are the areas we could really use someone a bit more depth in. I don't know what your thoughts about that is, but
yeah, definitely need some depth in the second row. I think that's one of the big areas where I'm struggling to see who is actually going to start in the second row. Most people have Jack Bird. Like I said, I prefer Jack Bird at lock. That leaves Terrell Fuamoano and Billy Burns as our only options to partner Jaden Sewer in the centres in the second row, and there's not too much else in there. So, yeah.
The only other option if we go with Ben Murdoch-Masila.
Yeah,
he has played second row.
And he looks a lot fitter. He does look fairly trim, so maybe he can fill that role.
He's lost 12 kilos, so he's going well with the fitness side of things, hopefully. But if we're looking at Billy Mayono, and if we're going to play Jack Bird at lock, I'd rather have Murdoch-Masila starting.
Yeah, well, again, a lot will come down to the trials, won't it?
It will. The other person I would like your opinion on is, and we've got, just want to just make a comment here, is one of my mates has put a comment in. We'll get this question in and one more, and then I've got to go and help my grandmother. So, would you like to see Anthony Griffin past 2023?
I would like to see him past 2023 if he earns it. So I think the first 10 rounds are key. If we don't win 7 out of our first 10, I think Anthony Griffin's got to be under a lot of pressure. If we don't win 6 of our last 10, then I think Anthony Griffin should be sacked by Magic Round. So I think the way that we start the year is going to be key.
Look, I think Griffin can be a good coach, but it's a complicated situation because you hear some players really like him, and we've got some players that aren't backing him. Players that want to leave and don't want to play under him. Got two different sides that want him, don't want him. It's just going to be a complicated situation. And if we don't win by round 7 or 10, he's got to go.
Yeah,
but if he
I always say, I don't care who the coach is. I want the Dragons to win every single game, every single season for the next 100 years. If that happens, then I don't care who the coach is. But that's not going to happen.
Me either. Even if the coach was a fridge, as long as we're winning.
100%.
Be interesting press conference having a fridge.
Well, same as Wayne Bennett, isn't it? Really, get the same responses.
I wonder why. I wonder if the club tried to get Wayne Bennett back once he came off contract.
I'm not sure.
I'd rather Wayne back, but it's a complicated thing. But if Griffin goes, who would you like to see there, though?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question in itself. I don't know. It's a matter of who's available at the time. I'm not a big fan of Des Hasler. I think Des Hasler's a move sideways. The criticism of Anthony Griffin is that he's old, a bit of a dinosaur and not up with modern times. I would say Des Hasler is exactly the same way. He's been a great coach in the past, but I think 2011 was his last premiership, and his teams have sort of struggled since then. I'd be looking to get a younger guy that's got a bit more of an idea of the modern game. I'm not sure exactly who that is or who fits that bill and who's available that could do that job. But having a guy like Cameron Sorolla or Craig Fitzgibbon or somebody like that, there's got to be somebody else out there that is chomping at the bit and waiting for an opportunity.
There's only 2 names that come to my mind when I think about Griffin's replacement. It's Dean Young and Shane Flanagan. They're the 2 names that stick out of the list of people that could do a good job.
What about Ben Hornby?
Oh yeah, isn't he still with the?
Yeah, so he's an assistant at Souths.
He'd be good. Those 3 names, but it's going to be a weird situation, and I hope it doesn't turn out to be like the Tigers in the sense that we don't keep giving him a chance and just let it drag on. I think it needs to be a fast thing where we get the new coach in kind of straight away and don't drag it on.
We can't make the same mistake that we made with Paul McGregor either, and just we kept Paul McGregor on I think way too long and needed to make that decision a lot quicker. So I think we've got to be as you say proactive with our decision around Griffin. It's got to be made by mid-season, one way or the other.
And the other thing for me with us is we've got to also work it out with Griffin to make, if he stays, I think the club need to work out how to make sure all the players are on the same boat as him and have belief in him if he stays. I think that's something the club even now needs to work on, because there is players still now that don't like him, and I think that really can affect us.
Yeah, I think you talk to a few players, and the communication was the area where Anthony Griffin really struggled last year. They weren't really sure in terms of what they had to do, what they had to improve on in order to get into the top side. What did they have to do? And there wasn't that that communication in terms of what their role was going forward at the club. They were sort of drifting through and not knowing what they had to do day in, day out to improve. So he's got to get better at communicating that to the players and not relying on the CEO to do it for him.
Yeah, and not have any barbecues as well.
Yeah, well, that's they're allowed to have them now, mate. But no, that was obviously a big mistake, and it's been a lot of mistakes going forward for the Dragons all up in terms of the amount of players that turned up to the presentation night, the barbecue, the
whole
Craig
thing.
Young using the letterhead for Brett Finch, and it's just been a lot of stuff ups from the Dragons over the last little while.
And I would also say these are two last questions for you, mate.
Yep.
If we go the wooden spoon this year, would you look at having a complete wipeout, not getting rid of all the players, but would you look at getting all new staff at the club, getting a whole bunch of new players, new coach? Would you look at that, or would you look at staying where we are and just get a new coach?
Oh, mate, if we kept the wooden spoon, then there'll be massive questions asked of everybody that's involved in the club. We've already had all new staff. Like the entire coaching staff has changed. The entire coaching structure has changed. We've changed pretty much everybody except the coach. We've got a number of players off contract. I don't know that there's too many of them that you'd be looking to keep on next year at all, aside from probably Blake Laurie is the only one that I see that's coming off contract that I would straight away be looking to re-sign for 2024.
And it's confused me since we re-signed him why we only signed him 1 year.
Yeah, I think at the time he was kind of struggling. Like he had that game where he ran for about 12 metres in one game and wasn't playing great consistent footy, but we gave him one more season, and then as soon as he got that contract, he was fantastic after that. I think he's done enough to. I think he's our number one front rower at the club right now, and we certainly can't afford to be losing our number one front rower. I wouldn't have thought.
The only couple of players that really stick out for me that I think that would be good to re-sign is the likes of Michael Molo. I think if we can re-sign him, Francis Molo, I'd like probably to keep him, and I'd probably go Blake Laurie. They're the only names that kind of stand out to me too much to keep on, and Sewer.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think most of Michael Molo, there's a mutual option for Michael Molo. I don't know exactly what that means for 2024, but he does have an option to stay on for 2024. Frankie is signed in 2024 already. Jaden Sewer is signed for 2024 already, but the players off contract. We've got Aaron Woods, Billy Burns, Blake Laurie, Jacob Little, Josh Kerr, Moses Mbai, Nick Luitoso, Tau Moga, and Terrell Thormoano. So they're the players that are off contract, and I think we've spoken about most of them already as being players that are literally playing for their careers. So they all need big years if they are to get re-signed. And as you say, if we do win the wooden spoon, I can't see any of them sticking around. I can't see the coach sticking around. I think all the coaching staff, even though it's their first year, they'll be out the door as well. And maybe another couple of board members with their heads on the chopping block as well.
And the last question of the show is, what do you think about Hooker?
I think there's a real contest going on for the dummy half role. I look at our top 30 at the moment, and the only real option is Jacob Little. So he's the only bloke that's currently in our top 30. We've got Connor Mullison in the development contract, so he's not available until round 11. And then we've got Haile Finau as well on a train and trial contract. Some rumours that he might get upgraded to a top 30, and then he becomes a genuine option. But I think at the moment it's got to be Jacob Little. I think it's a key that he is able to stay fit. He's had a lot of injuries over the last few seasons, but you think about Jacob Little, looking back when he was a youngster, he was an Australian schoolboy. So anyone that was good enough to be an Australian schoolboy means he's got some ability when he's able to stay on the park consistently. So if he can stay fit, I think he's a really good option for us at 9.
And as I speak, we actually got a former Dragons player. So I can get this out. We've got Pawasi Farmasili. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for commenting, mate. Hope you're enjoying the heat up in Queensland. So you got to probably start little, but I think we are probably in the hunt for a quality hooker. I think we're probably still looking out for someone.
Yeah, I think we were certainly looking at Reece Robson for 2024, but unfortunately he's re-signed with the Cowboys, so we've got to set our sights somewhere else. And he was certainly the best of the players that were coming off contracts. So we might have to look a little bit further afield to find the right option there. But as I say, if Jacob Little, if he can stay fit and on the park for the full season, I think he's a player that could certainly earn an extension to that contract. But he's only been given a one year deal, and he's going to need to play really well if he's going to do the job and get another year at the club.
And the last thing I will say is that we do have Connor Monison, and I think he can be a general option. I've seen him in New South Wales Cup and Flag and Mats, and he's a really good player. It's round 11, so with the development contract, it's round 11, or if it's a certain player that has one position, if there's 4 injuries in a select position, he can be used. So It's a little bit complicated. And the last thing I will put to you.
Well, can I just comment on Connor there, mate? Just like you talk about dummy halves, and for me, the key thing you look for from a dummy half is his service. And I don't think there's anybody at the Dragons club who gives better service from dummy half than Connor. His passing game from the ground is
excellent.
Like he allows teams to play with a lot of width. So that's something that certainly doesn't go unnoticed from me when I've watched him play. His service from dummy half is the best of anybody else we've got at the club.
And I will talk about one last player before we do head off. What was your honest opinion on Pawasi Farmasili, because he's left the stream now?
Mate, I thought he was a bloke that didn't get enough of an opportunity under Hook. He was a guy that he certainly had some issues defensively in terms of his lateral movement, but I thought in short bursts coming off the bench, he was one of the few that really did bend the line and certainly looked like just visually to have a real impact when he came on the field. So I was a little bit surprised that he didn't get more of an opportunity in the top grades when that was the type of thing we were looking for. We were really looking for somebody to come on and have an impact off the bench, and he was a guy that could do that.
And it was unfortunate for him last year. He was only named in an extended squad once in round 2. I just looked at it up here. He was only mentioned in an extended jersey number 22 one time for the whole year in round 2, and was not mentioned again.
He was a guy that like people say the Hook has his favourites. He certainly seemed like a guy that had his cards marked very early on last year that he just wasn't going to get a go.
And from my knowledge, Paul McGregor had signed him while it was under Paul McGregor's time, and apparently Griffin wasn't a fan of him. So apparently that would have probably contributed to it. But unfortunately, I can't see him getting any much game time at the Dolphins as well.
Wish him all the best, and hopefully he does get a chance to prove some of his doubters wrong, because I'm sure there's lots of people that would love that opportunity. But we'll see how he goes.
How I end every stream, even if it's not a person that I've had on I ask them one player they would love to see at their club. So, who would you love to see at the Dragons, mate? It could be any player, even if it's not possible to happen. Who would you love to see?
Oh, I think I've already mentioned him, but Reece Robson is a player that I've former Dragons that came through our junior development systems. I was devastated when we let him go, and I would have loved to see him come back to the club to play 9 in a role that we desperately need him to play now. I wasn't happy that we let him go in the first place, and he's the one I'd like to see come back.
And the guy I mentioned, you've probably never heard of the guy. I will mention his name is John Oliver. He only played 15 NRL games for the 10 games for the Bulldogs and 1 game for the Storm. And I'd like to see him come a chance playing for the Dragons. That's who I have. I thought he was a great player and also close friends with him. Who I would say. So, yep. All right, mate, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I still got you, just.
So I've got to wrap up the show now because I've got to help my grandmother, but it's been a privilege to have you on, and I will say for you if you'd like to say anything to the stream, because we've had 12 people on. Just like to thank everybody who came on and sat through an hour and 15 minutes. And like to thank Kawasi Farmasili for getting on, and we both wish him the best of luck at the Dolphins. And thank you very much for coming on, mates. And we'll talk soon, and maybe we'll get you on in the Charity Shield video that I'll be doing about the week after the Charity Shield. If you'd like to, we'll get you on for it.
Yeah, sounds good, mate. Thank you very much for inviting me on, and it's been an absolute pleasure. So it's always fun to chat Dragons.
All right, thank you, mate, and that's a wrap.